And we are live. Good late evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey's Late Show. I'm your host, Kerry Arnold. With me, as always, my awesome, fantastic co-host and field producer for the Bigfoot Odyssey Travel Show, Bradley Hatcher. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Kerry. How about yourself?
Man, if I was doing any better, I couldn't stand myself. Almost can't stand myself already. But we do have a great show for you tonight. We have two guests from Lost Cryptids Conservatory. These gentlemen are Bigfoot researchers. They've had experiences. Ernest Fargo and William Sowards. Sorry, Bill. They said William on the thing there. So Bill Sowards. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hey, guys.
Tonight.
And Bill is actually doing a little research trip. You're out around the campfire and getting some activity right now, huh, Bill?
Yes, at the moment we are. I'm up at Deadstream Swamp, and we're hearing a bunch of brakes in the back, and my dog just ran back into the truck. She won't come out now.
Well, that's probably a good sign that you might have something around there. So I'll tell you what,
Right.
if something happens, just break in here and interrupt us and tell us to be quiet so we can hear it.
I'll happily do that.
All right. Well, just want to remind everybody. Yeah. Just want to remind everybody in the chat. We like to keep it a family around here, so let's keep it clean. We do appreciate that very much. Shout out to all our fantastic moderators that do such an awesome job maintaining the integrity of our chat and our show for us. We appreciate you guys so very much. We're going to take questions for our guests toward the end of the show, and I'll let you guys know when we're ready for that. Make sure when you have your questions, put them all in caps for us. Makes it a lot easier for me to pick out because I'm not really reading through the chat. I'm just seeing with everything that's capped out and reading that. So, all right, without any further ado, Ernest, let's start with you, man. We have, just tell us just give us a little brief summary. What got you started in it? Did you believe in Bigfoot all your whole life? What happened here?
I'd really never thought much about it. I had like a sighting back in 1991. I was actually leaving hunting camp. I think I spent 3 days there. So it would have been November 17th on the third day of hunting season. I went and left hunting camp and driving back home. I drove about probably 45 minutes or so and had find a rest area. There wasn't none available, so I turned down a little dirt road, a little gravel road off to the right, and drove down a little ways and parked and jumped out of the car to do my business. And this is right at the time, just right at dark, when it was probably past twilight. It was pretty much dark, probably too dark to shoot if you're going to hunt or something like that. And I jumped out doing my business, and looking up the road, what I saw, I guess I saw the silhouette of the forest on both sides of the street and a hill, so I saw the silhouette of the road and the forest on both sides against a little bit lighter sky towards the west. I was facing west. So it was right at that time, just the sky was just a little bit lighter that direction. It was completely pitch black behind me. And I'm doing my business, and hear the scream, this god-awful scream. It just was horrible, and it was, a little bit eerie, just I was forest all around me and by myself and outside of the safety of my car, and hear the scream. So at that point, it took my attention, I guess, up the road to the top of the hill. I saw what looked to be somebody standing on the side of the road, just on the edge of the road on the left side of the road. So what I saw was the silhouette of the forest, and and what looked like to be a person on the side of the road on the left side of right at the top of the hill. And at that point, I guess I assumed it was just a hunter. It was the third day of rifle season in northern Michigan, and there's a lot of hunters around. I guess I assumed that maybe a hunter came out of the woods waiting for the ride to pick him up or something on the side of the road. So, but the sound was eerie enough for me to pretty much jump inside my car, and to the safety of my car. I jumped in, started up my car, started driving up the road, driving up towards the hill. And as I crested the hill, this hair-covered thing walked from the left side of the road, across the road, into the woods on the other side of the road. I probably got within about 30 yards of it with my headlights shining on it, and man, it was pretty realistic looking. It looked like what everybody describes as being a Bigfoot. This was November 17th, 1991. I did end up reporting that to BFRO when the internet was still new back in the 90s, when the BFRO was still new. I think I'm one of the early reports from the BFRO and the BFRO database. The sighting was November 17th, 1991. I think it's report number 767. I think there are over 60,000 reports now, but
yeah, they're way up there. You can't find them all, but there's a lot.
I think, well, mine's in the database. You can find that one online. It's Ogama County, Michigan, Class A sighting, 1991. Anybody wants to read the whole sighting report. So they did investigate. That was, I think, more than 20 years ago now. It's been quite a while. So the actual sighting, 29 years ago.
Almost 30 years.
I think it was reported over 20 years ago. So it's been quite a while now.
Yeah, they started in 95 with that database. So
I don't think the online, when I actually did the report originally, I don't think there was an online database at that point. So I think the BFRO started in 95, but I don't think that database was accessible online until later, sometime later after I did my report, at least.
Right.
So that's what got me interested. I guess that's what sparked my interest. I had no idea that there were anything like that here in Michigan, but I guess I was pretty much a believer at that point. I just can't imagine. It was so realistic. I mean, I still don't wear glasses at this point in my life, and I had perfect eyesight at that point, and I just have a hard time believing somebody could pull off a hoax, that close and that realistic.
Especially during hunting season.
Yeah.
For me,
when everyone's got a rifle.
Either it was a really, really good hoax or it's the real thing. That's only two possibilities.
Well, if it's a good hoax, if someone's good enough to hoax like that, I don't think they'd be dumb enough to do it the third day of rifle season.
That's
no kidding.
It's another thing to consider. It would be a pretty dangerous time right at dark to be running around with a fursuit on during rifle season, third day in Michigan. It'd be gambling with your life there.
For sure. Yeah. Did it appear to be pretty good size, or you just thought it was a guy?
You know what? I keep thinking back to that. I guess I really didn't have much to judge, size against, but I would have to imagine at least 6 foot tall, probably going by memory, probably between 6 and 7 foot tall. I wouldn't say 8 or 9 foot or anything that big.
Right.
But again, I didn't have anything to judge size from. I know from bear hunting and stuff, a bear can be very deceptive in size. You think you've got a 400-pound black bear and you shoot it and it's 250 pounds. They can be really deceiving when they're up close and personal. And so, it's really hard to judge size. I think I could. It seemed big. It seemed tall. It didn't seem as thick as what Patty was, and the Patterson Gimlin film as seemed taller and lankier, I guess, than that. But it did look tall. I do remember that. It looked tall, and it looked. I think I wrote in that report it being animal-like movements. That's the one thing that I think stood out the most to me. It didn't move like a person. It didn't walk like a person. It was quick and efficient, but it was different. And I think I put that down in the report. That was, like I said, over 20 years ago. But I think I mentioned something about animal-like movements. It just didn't seem like a person. And, even to this day, it's really stuck with me. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It made a, big impact on me, my memory. I still have a hard time believing that somebody could have pulled a hoax that realistic and that convincing right in front of me at that distance. It seemed really realistic to me, but I always maintain there's always a small possibility it could have been somebody to sue, but if I had to bet my life on it, I'd bet that it's the real thing and not a hoax,
Well, go ahead, Brad.
I'm just gonna say, you drove by where it crossed, right?
I had to drive by, and I remember, the fear hit me a few seconds after I drove by. So it took me a minute to register what I'd seen. It's, my first thought, I guess when I passed it or seen it, I was still thinking it's a hunter. And I remember my first thoughts was, wow, that's really good camouflage. Then then just a second or two later, wow, that doesn't seem human-like. That seemed like an animal of some sort. Like it just didn't walk. It just moved different. It took me a few seconds for things to click, and then the fear hit me, you know. So I had to go past that spot and turn around to get back on the main road, the paved road, to head back home. You know, my hunting camp was about 3.5 hours from where I live, so I had quite a ride home still. But I remember having to drive back by the spot the second time to make it back to the main road, and I was doing about 60 miles an hour or so, and expecting a big monster to jump onto my car as I pass by. You know, I guess just the fear hit me, and you always think back in retrospect and think what you should have done. And one of my biggest regrets is not sticking around and looking for tracks. You know, there would have been a good chance of having good tracks crossing the road right there. You know,
Right.
and I just, not something I thought about at the time, and it's something I regret to this day, that I wish I would have stuck around and at least.
Well, you've been researching for a while, and you've gotten other confirmation since then. And this is the thing about having a sighting or an experience when you're oblivious, when you're completely and totally unaware. You're not out there looking for it. This thing comes to you. And because even if you get a good, clear look at it, when it's done, you're still doubting yourself. So you go look for these things, and then you're finding more confirmation. At least, even if you're looking for them on the internet, I'm sure back then there wasn't a lot to go by. But nowadays, there's enough stuff out there that if someone looks into it, they're gonna get confirmed pretty easily now. But you've had other experiences since then, since you've been researching, though, right?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, not a few little instances were really, really cool, but some of my best things were, not actually looking for them, just happened to be camping. So I'm a backcountry backpacker, so I've been doing that since my teen years. So since I was a teen, I've been backpacking. So I got into that young, and I've traveled all over, backpacking all over the United States and Canada, even as far as Australia and the Arctic Circle, caribou hunting up there,
Wow. So you have been around. I'm going to let Brad's going to get into to more of your encounters and experiences. I want to hear from Bill. Same question, Bill. What got you started in this, man? What was the genesis here? Can you hear us, Bill? You there, Bill? I don't know. I don't guess Bill can hear us. He was moving around there a little bit.
Can you hear us, Bill? No. Anyway, I was going to say, Ernie, I imagine when you realized you had to turn around and drive back by that spot, I'm surprised you were only doing 60. But that
it was a small, pretty narrow gravel road, and 60 miles an hour probably, it may have been faster, I don't know, but there was definitely a fear factor going on, and I was a little bit very nervous by passing that spot again. And I remember thinking and expecting a monster to jump out of the woods and land in my car as I drove by. It's looking back at it.
Well, rightfully so. So how, after that initial sighting, and one thing I'm curious about is, were you scared to go camping again after that, or did that even jump into the equation, since you're backpacking and hunting, etc.?
I was out all day hunting today, and I do remember for several years being a little nervous, especially because I've always hunted, my whole life, and I was hunted all day today and all day yesterday. It's deer season here in Michigan, bow season. But I do remember for several years, like, being a little nervous, walking out before daylight, really, from that point on, I did carry even a handgun during bow season, so I'm really nervous walking out after dark, so it did affect my hunting, at least, and I guess the backpacking and stuff too, a little bit. I was always a little bit nervous. Like, there's always the thought in the back of my mind that there's something more that out there than what most people believe there is. But we do have bears anyway, so also. You know, got bear to worry about, especially carrying food and stuff in. You know, you have to want to be separate from your food, not have them, you know, scavenge at night and come into your camp and things like that. So I guess
Right.
that's always in the back of my mind also. But
You probably got a better chance to run into a bear than seeing another Sasquatch, theoretically.
Dr. Grover Krantz, you know, he estimated and wrote in one of his books that he estimated there should be, based on his calculations, about 100 bear for every Sasquatch. I think here in Michigan they estimate about 15 to 19,000 black bears. So, you know,
I don't know how in the world anybody would ever come up with a number for these creatures.
I guess he did it based on, you know, the how often the tracks showed up and how often the sightings happened, and comparatively to bear and stuff like that. You know, and there's some myths. Some people say, in fact, you know, Dr. Grover Krantz also said that he'd never found a bear skull or bear remains in the wild. You know, but I've actually found bear remains twice.
What got me started with it was kind of similar to Ernie's story. I went hunting one morning and I was running late. I took a trail I normally wouldn't because it's so rough. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just there's a serious delay going on here.
I can hear.
Yeah, he's catching us from a few minutes
Sorry about
ago.
that. Am I not coming in clear?
Go ahead, Bill. Continue.
Yeah, I think he's catching us from a few minutes ago. That's a serious delay. It's just because he's moving around. I'll send him a message.
Sounds good. Yeah.
He's just gonna start talking again. I'm just gonna mute him for right now. All right.
Okay.
We do apologize for the technical difficulties. This is the thing when you're working without a net. This happens sometimes. Is you gotta have decent internet, and we had a good hookup earlier, but he was still there around the campfire. I think he might have moved around and got off, but we'll I got a message to him and we'll see if we can.
He is in a pretty remote area there. That's a great active area and has been active for at least for the last few years. You know, been an active area that.
Well, apparently he had stuff going on, which was obviously why he got up to begin with. But what you were saying about that makes one of us. What you were saying about Krantz and he and Meldrum, I think, agree that they don't, or he didn't, you know. But Meldrum still doesn't think that these creatures have any type of sentience at all. That they might be, you know, smart for an animal, but not like human-like intelligence. And I think that's the factor here, is these creatures are self-aware. They have, you know, they have the ability to really process and work things out, and predisposed to hiding, obviously, or we would have a lot better evidence than we have of them. I don't think that's considered. You know, when you go talking about numbers, to me, there could be 1 million of these creatures. Just because I look at the number of, and I always go to the old white-tailed deer. Everybody's heard me say this 1,000 times. You know, there's over 30 million white-tailed deer. That's not counting every other kind of deer in the lower 48. That's not Canada. That's just the lower 48. 30 to 35, depending on the herds, and hunting every year. 30 to 35 million white-tailed deer. Now, how often do you see one of those, even when you're looking for them? You know, how often do you find tracks? You know, you think that many, you should be able to find tracks everywhere. In some places you can, but for the most part, you really got to go looking for them. I believe that there are a lot more Sasquatch than most people think out there, just because they are a sentient, not wanting to be found out, stay away from you when you come in the woods creature. My opinion, obviously.
Well, if you talk about comparing white-tailed deer, you know, a white-tailed deer become very smart and very elusive by 3.5 years old.
Sure.
And if you consider what a Sasquatch might live, I mean, you consider other primates and their lifespans, you can probably expect a Sasquatch to maybe live 35 to maybe 55 years old. you know, and imagine how intelligent, how in tune with nature an animal could be, you know, spending that many years, you know, how elusive it could be, you know, to get a 3.5 or 4.5-year-old buck, whitetail buck, is a really tough thing to do. You know, by the time they get that age, about 3.5 years old, they almost become nocturnal, and you won't ever see them during legal hunting hours, you know, except maybe during the rut when they get stupid during that time. You know, so, and that happens just in a few years. A buck can get that smart, that in tune, and we consider them a dumb animal. You know, of course, you know, a primate would be much smarter than a white-tailed deer. And if it were to live, you know, 35 to 55 years, it'd become very, very smart, very elusive, you know, and a very intelligent animal, you know, very in tune with nature, much more in tune with nature than we are. You know, people try to go out and look for Sasquatch, but in reality, try to walk through the woods and you have nature's alarm system. You have the squirrels, you have the birds chirping long before you ever get there, alerting any other animals to your presence there in the forest, you know? So it's pretty tough to ever sneak up on even a deer. To walk through the woods, it's not a good way to hunt. To try stalking and walking down deer, you're not usually very successful. Typically, you wait for them to come to you and ambush style hunt, you know. So
oh yeah, well, Texas A&M did a study several years ago where they took a 1 square mile radius, and it was higher than your typical game fence. They tagged, or they put radio transmitters on bucks, and then put hunters or theoretical hunters in there just to see how close, you know, what a deer would do when a hunter was busting through there or whatnot. And on numerous occasions, you know, people got within 10, 20 feet of a mature buck and didn't even know it.
Oh, absolutely.
Occasions. Yeah.
Yeah, they know they can sit there and hide from you and let you walk right on by. That happens all the time.
Yes, it does.
I've never seen, and I hunted for almost 30 years, primarily deer, and I've heard bucks fight. So down here, the rut only lasts probably about a week and a half. 2 weeks is a stretch, and I've never seen 2 bucks fight. But what I did see one time was a 6-point, a young buck, probably 2.5 years old, come walking down where I thought they would be coming from, stop because he made me, and I'm 20 feet up a tree, get down on his belly and back up backwards right the way he came.
And that's, you know, 6 points, probably 1.5 years or 2.5-year-old deer. You know, he's not even a mature, smart buck at that point yet. He's, you know,
I actually had 2 bucks. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't think it's implausible to think that if there, you know, is a primate, unknown primate running around, that it's going to be, you know, very smart, very elusive, and, you know, very easily be able to keep their distance from humans, you know. Hard
to sneak up on. I think Timber Giant happened up on a red one on accident and just happened to catch it down in a little bitty branch bed where it was sitting, and you could see the head moving, and I think it had a baby with it. And he wasn't that close to it. I think he was probably 100, 120 feet away. And I think it made him without even looking. It never turned its head to look, but it eventually, I think he stepped or breathed wrong or made some kind of noise. And you saw this creature get up and walk away. It's perfectly clear. It's definitely not a bear. It's either a Sasquatch or it's somebody in a suit, plain and simple. And I don't think Timber Giant has ever been the kind of person to try to pull anything like that. At least you wouldn't think you would do it that way. So I think it is possible, but again, it's that awareness factor.
Well, getting a sense of I probably read thousands of sighting reports, and just from that, I kind of get the sense that most reports, the majority, are by chance encounters, you know, encounters that happen when people aren't looking for them, you know, and by normal people. And I think it's probably a lot less sightings, a lot less encounters happen by actual Bigfoot hunters out looking for them.
Right.
You know, it's just by accident most of the time, or maybe in the middle of the night, you know, coming up and scoping out a campfire or something when they're in control, and you know, their night vision is a little better than ours would be. There may be something like that. But I think that most encounters are, you know, like I think my encounter road crossing is probably the most common sighting there is out there, you know. Other common things seem to be water seems to be a common factor oftentimes, you know, rivers, next to lakes, things like that. So, but, you know, I think most encounters happen by accident, you know, by normal people.
And not that many people are going off trail. You know, even hunters these days, we're not a very graceful species in the woods. You know, we're probably a lot less graceful than we think we are, especially to a creature that lives in that environment. And you think about a hunter these days, you're parking your truck in the same place, you're walking in the same way, you're going to the same shooting house, the same, you know, bait pile, you're hunting the same area, using the same trails. We're pretty easily patterned. Not a lot of people are actually hunting and going off trail to hunt.
Well, you're right. So many people say, you know, oh, this looks like a great trail, a game trail. I mean, you know, I'll take off down that. You never hear of anybody, you know, let me make my own trail. So I'd like to see the Bigfoot's encounter web of humans. I think that'd be a good thing if they had a database of that. Yeah, got another one.
So I was 19 when I had this, you know, road cross sighting, and I was also getting into backpacking about the same time, and I also hunted, and you know, and that's kind of been my hobbies most of my life, and I kind of have meshed all the hobbies together now. The Bigfoot hunting and, you know, the hunting, you know, the trail cams work for Bigfoot. They work for deer also. Well, actually, they haven't worked for Bigfoot yet. I don't have any good trail cam photos or anything like that. But then the backpacking thing, and I like the backcountry backpacking. Yeah, I love to fish and go into places where very few people ever gone, and enjoy time away from civilization. I enjoy that. That's what I do with my vacations, my time off work. That's what I do, either hunt, fish, backpack, or hiking and stuff like that. But you know, it's easy in Bigfoot world to combine all those kind of in a way. You know, you go out fishing, you're still looking out for signs of possible Sasquatch, you know, if there's anything around, and you listen different, I guess, and listen for different sounds and look for different things and be more aware. And one of the interesting things about this group here in Michigan, and a lot of, it seems, you know, it turns out there's some pretty hardcore guys that are willing to go into the deepest, darkest spots, you know, and willing to cross the swamps to get to these islands and check these places out. And, you know, Blake and Chad and Bill, and I mean, there's so many guys here now. We got a pretty good sized group going that are pretty dedicated researchers and pretty dedicated, you know, pretty hardcore, really.
They are. We've made note of that, actually. And it's good to have guys like that with different skill sets, because you kind of keep each other in check. You know, you were talking about, you know, listening different and hearing differently. And I hear this, you know, a lot of researchers do this. If you ever watched Finding Bigfoot, they did this every single time. Everyone I watched anyway, they're walking through the woods with the camera on themselves, and they stop for a second and hear something, and that's a squatch. You know, I heard a twig break over here. That's a squatch. You know, that was, you know, Bobo Fay, God love him, he's a great guy. But they did that a lot on that show. So I think if you're in that mindset, and it's good to have someone around that can keep you in check, because I've heard plenty of wolf howls, red wolves, that I've actually heard and then seen them that sound exactly like some of these Bigfoot mating calls. that someone has that I heard someone put out on a video. I have to get that video and show you guys. He says this was a mating call, and I will swear it's red wolves, because it's that long, oh, you know, howl. But if you got Bigfoot
here,
yeah,
these are from a gray wolf from the summer.
Right, monsters.
Wow.
So I think I casted 6. I think we casted about 10 different tracks from the same wolf, which is a strange situation. So I actually headed up 3 different expeditions, official ones, this past summer. Probably 2 more unofficial ones, expeditions, you know, groups, camps, and one of them was in the Hiawatha National Forest in August. So we had my official ones were June, July, and August, the last weekend of each month of those months. But we had one in May, and we had another one in September, and we did Dewey Lake Monster Conference thing, and I guess that was September also. But we had a Hiawatha National Forest in the UP of Michigan, Northern Peninsula, Upper Peninsula, and right smack dab in the middle of the Hiawatha National Forest, and found our investigation site, our area ended up being a lake. We had our own lake to ourselves that had little canals that went out to 2 other lakes. So really we had 3 lakes and we were the only ones there, you know. But what was interesting is I totally expected to have bear encounters, you know, and maybe bear coming into camp to scavenge for food or whatever, but ended up having a wolf that came in every single night into camp. I was there a week, actually like 10 days spent up there, and had one single wolf, you know. It was one lone wolf. Of course, we have the thermal, you know, night vision and all that also. So we were able to see him stalking around camp every night. He was there every night. So I ended up getting some good casts. It was strange, you know. I've never, in all my backpack and all my years, you know, in Canada a few times I've seen wolves at, you know, long distances through binoculars, a mile or so away or whatever, but I've never encountered a wolf in the wild backpacking or anything. You know, their smell is so good and they're so in tune with nature. It's hard to ever get close to a wolf. It's, you know, researchers have a hard time, you know, even, you know, studying wolves. So to have one come up to camp was really odd. You know, it was one single camp, it was, you know, one single wolf. And you know, it makes me wonder if it was a lone wolf, maybe kicked out of the pack or something like that, or what the reason was. Or is it that they're getting used to campers and scavenging from campsites? I don't know. But there was one single wolf that seemed to come in every night and spend a lot of time around our camp.
How close?
Oh, God. I mean, he walked right, you know, he'd actually wait till we knew he was out there. You could see him on the thermal and stuff. So we'd actually kind of wait till, you know, pretty late, you know, and keep the fire going and everything else pretty high. And then finally go to bed in our tents. And had one night actually came right up to the tent, the side of the tent, took its paw, scraped the paw down the side of the tent, walked around the other side of the tent and like slapped it, or maybe his tail slapped the side of the tent or something like that. So he came right into camp. I mean, he'd wait till the fire was still roaring. I mean, he'd throw firewood on there just before we go into the tents. And just 5 or 10 minutes later, he'd come into camp. So he wouldn't even wait very long.
Wow.
You know? So a pretty bold wolf, you know. I'm not sure. It just makes me wonder its intentions or, you know, the strange behavior, you know, really. But beyond that, actually had a cougar come close to camp and actually got track of that too. But didn't cast that track, but took real good pictures, and it's definitely a cougar, and we definitely got that on thermal. So that actually came close to camp one night, you know, before we found the tracks, and, you know, found the tracks the next day or whatever.
Well, but, I'll say this. This is a real researcher here, folks. He actually has casting material with him when he goes into the woods. And I'll let me say, I heard from Bill. He didn't get attacked and then dragged off. He said, I have no idea what's going on with my phone. It shut off, and then I lost all visual. I may need to run into town. My apologies. So if he can join us back, great. If not, we'll definitely have him on the next one for sure. So sorry, Bill. You're obviously welcome back anytime. And you also, Ernest. I like having you Lost Cryptids guys on here because at first there's a lot of you, and you've all got something different to talk about. And most of you have actually had experiences. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking to us. And if you haven't gone and subscribed to Lost Cryptids Conservatory, Blake Deutscher leads that up. He's created that. A lot of good videos on there. So make sure you go and check that out. You get to go out with Blake a lot, Ernest, and those guys?
Oh, yeah. Blake, yeah, he makes, you know, we do all kinds of different outings. So there's always different groups of us going different places. Not everybody can make every camp out or investigation or whatever it is we're doing. But, you know, so there's, you know, there might be 8 or 10 of us or whatever, but it might be 3 or 4 different people every time. And So Bill's another one that's often with us, and he's just another hardcore Michigan investigator, I guess, or at least willing to go out into the thick and worst places and staying pretty active. I guess you can tell how serious somebody is by how often they show up. And this core group of people we have are pretty serious.
Did it surprise you how dedicated these guys are? Blake and Chad, were you surprised when you met up with these guys, just how hardcore they were?
Well, I've over years met and did different things before this Lost Cryptid Conservatory thing, I'd been out with pretty much everybody. I pretty much knew everybody before any of this, so everybody I pretty much knew already just from different outings, but not really as a group per se, I guess. But, it just, the hardcore people, I guess, you keep running into at these different camp outs and different expeditions that we put on here in Michigan. So we just eventually became friends, and now it's kind of the same core group kind of showing up at a lot of these different expeditions and camp outs and investigations, or whatever you want to call them. But so it's cool, everybody gets along good, and and it's most of the time fun. There's a lot of joking and giving people a hard time and laughing, and so
you gotta have that, right? You gotta have fun with it, if nothing else. You gotta have fun with it. Since we lost Bill, I sent the link to Chad Datema, so hopefully he'll be joining us here in just a little bit. I had something I definitely want to talk to you about when he gets on here. I think I mentioned it to you off screen. You got something, Brad? Oh,
I was just gonna. No, I'm not watching the game. It's 38-3, New Orleans. So, anyway. Matthew, when you go on backpacking and whatnot, did you ever run across a creature?
Never. I've had a couple weird things happen, but some of my, I guess, best other stories were not so much, not really backpacking, not hunting. Actually, one time hunting. So I did go up to Atlanta, Michigan one time. It's in northern lower peninsula. Bay Area, heavy Bay Area, everything. But I went up there with a friend, and we were actually hunting probably 1.5 miles or 2 miles apart. We had plans to meet up after the evening hunt on the side of the road where he was parking his truck. I was going to come back and meet him, and they were going to go into town and eat. So I, go hunt and didn't have any luck, and go to meet up with him. And I jump into his truck when I go back and meet him right on the side of the road. And he tells me the story that was just pretty crazy. So this is a guy that, I've known for years and years, worked with him, and we were hunting buddies for years. And, he's a pretty straightforward guy. I definitely never believed in Bigfoot or anything like that. But he told me the story that was pretty crazy. So he's telling me the story and actually shaking, like almost uncontrollably, and tears running down his face. And at that point, I think he was probably late 30s at that point, late 30s. So, he's a grown man, and tears running down his face telling this story. So his story was he's hunting in this self-climbing tree blind, or tree climber. So this is rifle season, northern Michigan. So he's got a rifle with him. And he goes up on the top of this tree, on the top of this ridge. And where he was at, there was one ridge, and then parallel ridges. There was 4 or 5 parallel ridges with valleys in between them going on. And he's hunting at the top of one of these ridges in a tree stand. And just before dark, he's telling me that he looked around to his right and saw something duck behind the ridge behind him. And then I guess he waited and was still scanning the area and everything. He thought it might be a black bear because they're pretty common there. Then a few minutes later, looked to the left and scanned that same ridge, but from the left side behind him, and saw another, the black thing again, ducked behind the ridge when he turned around. And it did this 3 or 4 times before dark. And as it's getting dark, it's getting pretty dark, I guess. He was a little bit nervous and thinking it's a bear or whatever. So he gets down out of his tree stand. And from his tree stand, he probably had an eighth of a mile to walk back straight through forest to get back to this little four-wheeler trail, and then probably more than a quarter mile to get back to the road down this four-wheeler trail. And he walked all that way into the woods to get there. So he said on his way out, he got back to the four-wheeler trail and started walking down the four-wheeler trail, and something stalked him. His words were, stalked me out of the woods all the way back to the road. And he said it kept getting behind trees and hiding behind trees and following him back. He says black in color. He never said Bigfoot or anything like that, but he did said it followed him all the way back to the woods, to the road where his truck was parked. And he's shaking and, tears running down his face while he's telling me the story. So I just want to calm him down. So I'm like, let's go into town and we'll grab a beer and eat dinner, and we decided to park my truck. Park my truck and jump in his truck. In fact, we were in my truck. He told me the story in my truck, not his truck. So I pull my truck off onto a little trail there and park it there on the side of the road pretty much. And we walk over to his truck, which is parked by the little four-wheeler trail that went into the woods where he said this thing, stalked him all the way back to the road. And to give his story a little bit of credibility, I actually heard this. When we got close to his truck, I heard something that sounded like a young child, a young girl, giggling in the woods just into the tree line, maybe 20 yards away, 20 yards into the woods or something, and it's the weirdest thing. It sounded like my young daughter at that point. My daughter was about that age at that time. It sounded like my daughter was in the woods, but this area, there's nothing. It's 3 miles of woods, straight just forest with no trails or anything in it, no cabins, no nothing for 3 miles all the way to the next road. There's nothing there, and I know there's no kids out there after dark during deer season. There's nothing around that area. There's no houses. There's nothing anywhere around there. It's pretty desolate. It's it's the most remote part of lower Michigan, is the Atlanta area. That's the only area that there's still elk left in the wild there. But I actually heard this, and it gives there was something there. There was something just in the woods that after 10 minutes of him telling me the story and everything else, it stayed there. And when we walked back to his truck that was parked right next to this trail on the road, I heard this, so I heard something. I don't know. I didn't see what he saw, but he claimed it was black and it was standing behind trees and stalked him all the way back to the road. And I heard what I heard, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's one of the weirdest things. I've never heard anything like it before or since then, but it was strange for sure.
Talk about terrifying. That's got to be, from experience, that's absolutely mortifying. Welcome to the show, Chad Datema. How are you? World's tallest Bigfoot researcher.
Well,
he just might be.
I'll say I'm taller than Bobo for sure, at least by an inch. But I don't know. There might be
You're way taller than Bobo's my height.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it, you guys.
No, we appreciate you guys coming on here. You're giving us content, so we thank you.
Well, I got to come in, and this is my friend Ernie, and we weren't always friends, but we are like really good friends now. We're not. I'm not gonna say like best friends, but we are really good friends. We're close. We trust each other. Okay. We built a relationship, but in the early stages of our relationship, it wasn't always so sunny. So I met Ernie and Chuck Sutherland at a Whitmore Lake Bigfoot conference. Okay. I gave him my information, and then all of a sudden I discovered a message from Ernie that was like 3 weeks old. Hey, let's get together. So I get with Ernie. I've already discovered my Bigfoot in my area that I've interacted with and habituated. Okay. So I get with Ernie. Now I want to be a show off. This is early in my Bigfoot research and knowing. I want to be a show off. I want to prove to Ernie, I'm going to show you Bigfoot. And So we make arrangements. I meet him at the Speedway gas station down the road. We pull up. We sit in my vehicle. I buy a six pack of beer. We have 2. We talk for a minute. I mean, it's our first time actually alone together. You know, it's first impressions. Okay. We go out into the field. You know, I'm explaining and pointing things to Ernie on the trail on the way down there. We go to get into the area, and I go to take him to show him where what I believe is like the den area, the area that you're not supposed to go. This is at the time. I just didn't want to go there. I still don't like going there. And I go to walk in there, and just out of nowhere, I'm falling down. I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. I'm panicking. I feel like I'm about to die. I think Ernie's drugged me and is going to kill me. I'm actually out in the middle of the woods accusing Ernie. This is no lie, people. I'm actually panicking. This is EMF. Okay, this is EMF. Whether Bigfoot did it or it was just something because we're close to power lines and energy's there, I don't know. Something happened, and I'm falling down. Ernie's freaking out. I'm falling out. I'm accusing him. Did you drug me? Did you drug me? He's like, no. Dude, we each had two 12-ounce beers. Okay, I wasn't intoxicated. We both just got out of work. Ernie actually carried me out of the woods, dropping me multiple times. Seriously. I'm like much taller than him.
Dragging him some of the way.
The further that I got away, the more balance and equilibrium and stuff I got back. I'm not making this up. Okay.
So this is getting dark about this point too. So I'm thinking, we got to get him out of the woods before dark, and get him try to get back to the cars. At this point. But this is the best part. So I am getting him out of the woods, and he's accusing me of drugging him. Out in the woods. And then we actually came across this worker, whatever, somebody that worked there doing something.
Weed whacking.
Yeah, so weed whacking, like the trail going back to the cars and stuff. And so then Chad starts yelling at this guy, help me, this guy drugged me. And this poor worker it's getting dark, there's 2 of him. This guy's 6'9" or something, and me, I'm 6 foot. And he doesn't want anything to do with us. He takes off and goes the other way and won't help Chad at all. Like if I would have been Jeffrey Dahmer, Chad would have been done.
Oh, done. Dinner would have been over.
Oh yeah.
But I did
this.
So I'll go back to the car and have a beer.
No, explain what happened. This is the whole weird thing about the thing. It's unexplainable. It really happened to me. It really happened to me just out of nowhere.
Something definitely happened to him.
And I'm not letting my friend Ernest Fargo off the hook. Something similar happened to him, and I'd like him to tell you about that.
Well, I have to say something similar did happen to me one time with another guy a couple of years before that, where I was out in the woods, and almost the same thing happened to me. But I'm one of the most skeptical guys out there. I can't prove anything any direction. But the weird thing was there was 2 of us there. I had plenty of food. There's no reason for me to. But I got like sick and almost the same thing, dizzy, almost passing out. I went down to my knees and trying to crawl out of there. And my first thought was maybe there's some kind of gases coming out of the ground that's making me dizzy and pass out or something, methane gas or whatever, natural gas, I don't know. But that was my thought. And I did have something, almost the same thing happen to me in the woods. There was 2 of us. It was the same situation. He was fine, and I was passing out so sick I couldn't hardly get out of there. I wasn't really sick, just passing out. I couldn't stay conscious. I was right on the verge of passing out, where I couldn't even walk. I was just like Chad. I had to basically crawl out of there and almost get dragged pretty much out of the woods. So I did have something similar, but I come from a really skeptical mindset. So I'm not willing to make any of anything whatsoever. But I can just tell you the truth of what I experienced. I did almost pass out in the woods with no good explanation for it, other than I just really don't know. A lot of people, claim infrasound, and I guess that's possible. It's a pretty tough thing to prove. I mean, when we can't technically do proof of a Sasquatch itself, so
you definitely can't prove that it's Sasquatch doing it. But you can take EMF meters out, and I've been out with Zasky and done this. I ordered a Mel meter, which is a ghost hunting device, but it had all kind of different readings on it, temperature and milligauss, and we were getting spikes up to 300 milligauss, which is just insane high. They weren't for an extended period of time. It would just shoot up and then back down. But I'm glad Chad said EMF, because everyone always goes to infrasound, and for the most part, infrasound is not an extremely powerful wavelength. It will make you sick if you're exposed to it for a long time and do all these things. But a lot of the symptoms that people talk about are the symptoms of being exposed to high levels of EMF: sick, disoriented, losing time, hearing voices, mind speak, just saying. Not saying that's what it is, but a lot of these things that people experience when it comes to Sasquatch. Now, in my 7 years that I know for a fact I was around them, I don't remember ever having any of this. So if Sasquatch does do it, it has to be something extremely selective and pretty rare. I would think that you're stumbling into something, maybe their child's area. Well, Chad, tell us what is your thought on this? If they do it, what's the deal here?
If they do it, if they have the ability to do it, let's think about this. Now, can I say this is true? But if they could emit an electricity, wouldn't that drain the electricity from them for them to be able to do something to you? So wouldn't you think they would have to recharge? I don't know. I don't know if they can do it. Could it be the ground? Could it be where we walk? Could we just be standing in an area where all of a sudden we're just standing in like you say, a spike, and there's like a frequency? I don't know. I think they can do something. I think they can do it. I wish I could say they could, but there is.
Christopher Noel wrote a book. I think it was called The Electric Sasquatch, where he puts forth a theory similar to that there are like power lines and power generating stations, and tend to follow those areas because they absorb the energy or whatever. I don't know. I think there's still lacking proof of anything to come to that conclusion. But, the infrasound thing's a very real thing with some animals, certainly I think tigers and some marine, dolphins and whales, I think, use some form of infrasound for that.
I think elephants can too.
Yeah, elephants do it.
It's my feeling that if a primate is able to do that, which I guess is entirely possible, that maybe they could create some kind of low frequency sound. I think infrasound is defined as like, inaudible hearing to humans below 20 hertz.
20,000. Yeah.
I think if they're capable of doing something like that, it's probably less likely that they're, affecting their prey or zapping people. I think it's more likely that if they're using something like that, it'd be more my thought, my guess, my feeling, I guess, would be that they're using it for long distance communication, which might even explain of how, maybe they can have a small population and still be able to survive as a species. Maybe they're able to be somewhat nomadic and be able to communicate long distances to get together when they need to reproduce or things like that.
I can buy that. But you're right. You're talking about all the other animals that can do this. Elephants, and what I've read about elephants doing it, tigers, it's just infrasound. It's accompanied by another audible tone that's audible to us. And the infrasound is in there. When they say when elephants do it, they have 2 sets of vocal cords and they purr, and they'll use one wavelength to help carry the ultra low frequency. And that's just what I read. So whoever put that on there.
Now, when I had my little experience where I got sick in the woods and was right passing out and stuff, I was with a guy, Chuck Sutherland, and it turns out he is also like a ghost hunter and has all the ghost hunting equipment. So we actually did take the EMF meter and all his ghost hunting stuff out there right to that area, set up a campfire at night, sat around the campfire with his ghost hunting equipment set up all over the woods around us and stuff. And
catch any ghosts? So
I actually work in the electrical world. That's my profession. That's what I do. So I understand a little bit about some of those. It was interesting to see how these things worked, and touching it, moving my fingers and hands around it and stuff like that, and acted like, I guess, what you would expect it to. But what was interesting, I have to say, is as this thing, the one thing sat in the woods and it like would light up when there's EMF coming near it and stuff, it'd light up different colors, and it was doing that without anybody around it. It was quite a distance from us and doing crazy things that I don't understand how it was doing it, because you could hold the thing and make it do what holding it and stuff like that and get near it yourself, but you just to set it there, it seems like there'd be no reason for it to act like it did. So it was interesting, I guess. I've never been a ghost hunter or anything, never seen the equipment out and working before, but it was interesting and cool, and I still can't explain any of it, but it was interesting and different. It was, I guess it's an experience. I don't know.
Did you catch any ghosts? This is the question.
Didn't catch any ghosts that night.
Hey, look, I've heard some weird, strange things. I caught a disembodied voice on a microphone exactly like this in the woods. Chad's pointing real crazily at a book. I don't know why he's even got a book. He must be using it for a coaster or something. But what?
Is it autographed?
What's he doing? It's a hint. Well, just tell us, man. It's open now. It's just the 400 of us here.
It's a hint. Ernie, my friend, will you explain your library to people? My friend, and I've seen his extensive library, and he gets books a week. I mean, this guy's literally got more books in the Bigfoot bookstore about Bigfoot. He don't have more books in the Bigfoot bookstore, but his books about Bigfoot, he has more probably. I can't say that for sure, but I'm telling you that he's literally got. It's incredible. I've seen it.
So I guess years ago, back in the 90s, trying to find information after my sighting in 1991, trying to find, before the internet, there wasn't a lot of information, and there was only, a handful of books that had ever been published by that point, into the 80s or into the 90s. There wasn't a whole lot out there. But the first book I found was John Green's Apes Among Us.
I got that one.
Still to this day, I think John Green's one of my favorite Bigfoot authors of all time. I mean, best investigator journalist on the subject there's ever been. I have a lot of respect for him. I really think he's, almost the godfather of Bigfoot in itself, almost go that far to say that. But so I got interested in the books, and at one point I figured, well, if I'm going to learn and if I'm going to be successful in Bigfoot hunting, I got to read everything that's out there. So I started reading the books and started buying books whenever I'd come across them. Then the internet came about, and books started being, more, accessible and easier to find. You wouldn't have to, most bookstores they have very few books on Bigfoot books. Really, it's a small subject. There's a lot of books out there, but there's not a ton of each book out there comparatively to a lot of other books out there.
Right.
So they're somewhat rare. So I started thinking that I could read every single book that was ever printed. And I was doing good for a while until, I guess, the Finding Bigfoot show and then the explosion of the Bigfoot subject itself. Now it seems like there's a book coming out every few weeks, like dozens every year. So I got to the point where I probably read a couple hundred different Bigfoot books. I probably own, I would guess at this point, well over 300, and
okay.
I
took
doubt
you 2 hours to show me all your books. It's more than 300.
That's a lot of books. I have a lot of books.
Literally.
I thought I had a lot of Bigfoot books because every time someone comes on here that has a book, we get it. Linda buys them. Linda, she's got all the missing 411. I think there might be one person's book that I didn't get, and that's just because they were selling it so hard. Just to be defiant.
I didn't
buy that one. Say it.
The thing is, not only does he own at least 300 books, he's pretty much read all of them, and some of them more than once. So this is what makes him a valuable team member to us. Not only that how easy he is to get along with and a friend he is, but his knowledge from all of his reading, and his he's the first to try to say maybe this isn't Bigfoot when somebody says it is, and we love that about him.
That's good. Absolutely. I've to me, from what I've read of the books that I do have, I struggle to find a really large variance. Aside from the experiences, the information seems to be pretty generic.
It is.
I don't know what that feedback is, but you notice that, Ernest, how it's kind of all talking about a book, and you talked about John Green. John Green's was just there's no fluff with John Green.
It's all some of the other ones. There's a lot of the last 10 years or so. There's been a lot of theories been put around there. Like I referenced Christopher Noel's books.
Love his stuff.
He's got several interesting theories. Like
all his
what do you call it? His autistic savant theory and the mind of Sasquatch, that book. Then you've got the electric Sasquatch, that theory. And so I guess there is some variance on some of these books. Electric Sasquatch and, even Ron Moorhead, there are variants in people's theories on what they believe this creature is. I tend to be more the flesh and blood side. I think, we're seriously lacking proof on the existence of Sasquatch, period. Then to add on psychic ability or jumping through portholes, and I think there's just a serious lack of evidence for a lot of that. Even though I can't discount everything, but I just find it hard to connect to a Sasquatch, even to an orb. I haven't seen myself a Sasquatch jump out of an orb, although I do have an orb story, I guess. I run 20 cameras, full time on video throughout the woods, throughout Michigan. And on one of these cameras, in the middle of winter, so I can't remember what month it is, but it was maybe February or something, middle of winter, several years ago, and ended up getting, it was the middle of the night, I think, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning or something, this big light up in the sky, bright light up in the trees, it was, and there's nothing around. This is about a mile and a half back from the nearest dirt road, so it's a long ways from anything. You had to take four-wheelers about a mile in and walk another half or three-quarters of a mile to get to where I put this camera. So it's a long ways back in, and there's no lights, no airports, nothing nearby, and end up in the middle of winter, this big old light, this bright like orb thing, and it's on video. So I think it was a 10 or 15 second video clip, and have this big light in the trees. And then, but something triggered the camera. Something made the camera turn on, and there was nothing there but a light in the tree. Okay, and then that same night, a few hours later, like 5 o'clock in the morning, strangest thing, another thing triggered the same camera, and it was something, it was small, maybe 4 or 6 inches long. It definitely wasn't a bird. It wasn't an insect. It was, my camera showed the temperature also, and it was like below freezing, negative numbers, I think. And this thing, so it wasn't an insect and definitely wasn't a bird, but something long and skinny and extremely fast came straight towards the camera, made a right-hand turn, and then another right-hand turn, and went straight away from the camera in just a few seconds at I mean, it could have been 100 miles an hour. I don't know, 50 miles an hour, something extremely fast and small. It really interesting. So that, again, I have my own little orb story thing that I caught on camera, that in this like little thing that I don't know what to think. It looks kind of like a rod, but it might be that the video is lagging. You're seeing blur, kind of, because it's moving so fast. So I'm not sure the shape of it, but it looks like a classic rod. I'm not even a UFO guy or a ghost guy or anything else. The only reason I'm a Bigfoot guy is because of that one thing I saw back in 1991, you know. So I don't pursue anything else. I've never tried pursuing anything else, but I do have that one experience, this one orb thing. But again, I still have a hard time making the connection between orbs or UFOs or, you know, portals or the mind speak or anything else. Struggles with that, connecting that to what I still believe is a flesh and blood creature, an animal, just a very intelligent.
And you know, that seems to be the majority of researchers that actually put boots on the ground and go out in the woods. That's to our experience anyway. Brad and I both have our own ideas about this creature, and they pretty much mirror each other. The thing is, especially when, you know, having doing this, what we do, is there is another side to it. And whether we believe it or agree with it or not, we listen to these reports and these eyewitnesses and these things that people are apparently seeing. I'm not just saying one person. I mean, like multiple people are seeing these crazy, strange, weird things. And I think it would be to our folly to turn away from it. Now, I'm a flesh and blood guy myself because we have their flesh and blood samples. You know, we have their hair, we have their tracks. You know, if they can do all these other things, you're right. The evidence for it to me is really, really lacking. But people are experiencing something, and it could be, you know, two things can be true at once. You can have paranormal activity and Sasquatch in the same place, and these things just getting married, you know, inadvertently, because there are Sasquatch in there, and people know this, and they have these experiences like, oh, this has got to be Bigfoot doing this type of stuff. But for us, we can't turn away from it because it is a side to the subject. And I think, like we tell everybody, you don't have to change what you believe. Just expand what you believe is possible. And if you do that, you can arm yourself with this information just in case it happens to you when you're out there. You've at least heard something about it and have something to draw off of.
Chad.
Oh, man. Let me catch my breath. My arm's kind of...
Your arm tired there?
Yeah, we heard you slapping your dog there.
Well, whatever. My dog deserved it. So I'm not going to let my good friend that I've been hanging out with a lot for the last 10 months, actually, ever since he forgave me for me blaming him for drugging him. We became friends about 10 months ago. Because he never wanted nothing to do with me. But now, since I've been friends with him, now he's going to sit here and tell you about Bigfoot. But he's not even talking about Waterloo and all the reports that he gets and all the things he hears and all the things he experiences out there with us. He hasn't even said one word about it. I've been watching the show all night. So his family owns 1,000 acres in a very remote area of northern Michigan. 1,000 acres adjacent to national forests and like hundreds and hundreds of yards on a river. But in Waterloo, where we have all these encounters, a high encounter place, well, basically, he's got 500 acres of access to 500 acres of private property adjacent to how many thousands of acres of state land. And this is where the sightings are. And this is where we get our action. And
well, see, this is the beauty of this show, Chad, is that Ernest, Bill, you guys can always come back. You know,
so true.
We don't have in an hour and a half or however long we're here. Of course, we're not going to get into everything, but see, we get an introduction to who he is, and then we can come back and get into a lot more of the detailed stuff that he doesn't happen to mention here tonight. So
it's a good team.
Yeah, this works out.
Yeah. So we just try to take the existing sighting reports and go into the best areas we can find in the state of Michigan for the most part, and and as a group, we've been doing these expeditions and going into the hot spots where we believe, the best concentration of sightings have happened historically. And that's
good common sense stuff.
That's where we try to go into it and spend our time. But what's cool is, it's the hardcore, that's the swamp tromping and the, going into the deep stuff. It's cool. It's adventurous. It's fun. It makes me feel like a kid again, just exploring. It's just a blast, seeing places that very few people ever go. Chad's one that like bounces through the swamps pretty good. You can go a little bit deeper water than the rest of us.
Have you even watched the video, Carrie, at all of us going through the middle of swamps? I mean, there's plenty of it out there. Have you actually watched any of it?
I watched about 10 minutes, I think, of the last couple of videos that was on the channel. But yeah, I've got so little time to watch a lot of videos. I'm constantly being emailed and sent clips of things to watch and booking guests.
Carrie, man. We're trying, man. We need that 1,000 members. We had 964 today. That leaves us 36 short, so that we can go live and show you people live on Facebook.
That's a good point.
This app. We can take you with us live while we go through these swamps. Otherwise, we can't. It's just on Facebook, and that's poor video quality.
Definitely.
When you go to Facebook, you're dropping down to what, 480 or something? Or?
Yeah, YouTube will actually take you down to 720 if you don't adjust your own settings. But you're right. On YouTube, you cannot do live mobile without 1,000 subscribers. I don't know why they have that rule in there. Maybe it's to keep live traffic down on a lot of new channels, but. So there you go. Go and subscribe. Lost Cryptid Conservatory. Push those guys over 1,000 so we can get those live videos from the field streamed straight to their channel. It's quick, simple. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Doesn't cost you a dime. You don't even have to hit the bell if you don't want to get notified. Just go hit that little red button. But still hit the bell. That's always good. I did let everyone know that we are about to start taking questions for you guys. So if you guys are ready, we're going to start taking some questions from the chat here.
We can do them individually if they want to pick who they want to answer to. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. These guys are pros. They know how to ask these questions. Trust me. Our good friend Hilton Whittlewood, all the way from New Zealand. Hilton. What's Chad's dog's name and how does it react to Bigfoot?
Wow, that's an easy question, and I love it. Thank you, Hilton, for giving me an easy question, not putting me on the spot. My dog's name is Boris. When he's around Bigfoot, he gets funny. He's very protective, and Ernie will even tell you that, and other people that are around him. When there's things that are out of the normal around, he acts weird. He alerts us of it. He doesn't chase after him. He actually is intimidated by them. So...
Well, he saved me from a wolf.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the dog saved you from a wolf?
Yeah.
That's
I sat down in between. I was what was it? Somebody else had the thermal, and I was walking like kind of towards the woods, and his dog got right in front of me and sat down, and the wolf was right in the woods, where I was walking towards. I think it was grabbing wood or something. Wow. But it was really weird, but definitely acted weird up in the UP when the wolf would be around. Would act, really strange and wouldn't let us. Just kind of stayed in between, I guess. It was pretty cool.
Good dog.
He's a good dog.
He's going to be a celebrity. He's got his own Facebook page now called Squatch Dog. Go ahead and join it. We're adding videos. We got videos of him swimming a mile through a lake chasing us while Ernie and I stole a canoe, and we paddled it with a shovel. We stole a canoe up in the UP, paddled it with a shovel, and all of a sudden here comes Squatch Dog swimming through the lake for a mile. And yeah, no lie.
We did return the canoe. We gave it back.
Okay. More questions. Come on, more questions.
All right, we're coming. This is from Jackie Lohman. I hope I said that right, Jackie. Ernest, what do you think about? I think that's supposed to be. What do you think about the different colors? Could it be age or just the area they live in?
Well, there's definitely variances of bear. You have cinnamon bear, a version of the black bear and stuff. Versions of nearly every type of animal. Squirrels. We have the gray squirrels, the fox squirrels, the black squirrels. All the same species that seem to evolve a little bit different depending on the environment. I believe it's completely possible that you'd have variances in Sasquatches throughout the United States and North America. Certainly northern states are likely a little different than the southern states, and maybe Florida a little bit different, than the others. And it was even described by Ivan Sanderson in his book, Legend Comes to Life. I think he just described a variance in different species possibly in North America. But of course, then you've got possible related species of some sort all over the world. You have the Yeren,
right,
the Yowie in Australia, the Yeti in the Himalayas, the orang pendek in Sumatra. We have these creatures all over the world that may be, loosely related and just slight variances between them. They
right.
all seem to be very elusive creatures, but all primates, but slight variances. So certainly you'd probably have difference in color, size, even aggression levels and stuff like that, depending on their lifestyle and their habitat, would be my guess.
It almost falls in line with the whole hybrid theory, because there are extreme variances of what people would consider to be the norm. Sasquatch would be Patty, I guess, the base, what they think Bigfoot should look like. And then you get all, the white ones and the gray ones. And I'll say this, look, this is about the last 5 years. I had one or two here and there, but I think Sasquatch can turn white just like we do. I think that's absolutely a possibility.
They don't all look alike. I'm telling you, they all look different, just like we do.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's it's a little out of the fairway for us, but since you guys are in Michigan, it kind of fits. Have any of you guys seen the Dog Man or Wolf Creature?
I'm gonna let Ernie answer this one.
Dog Man, to me, I don't know. That's kind of a crazy thing. I've been trying to research that for a while, and the best I can come up with is certainly early European settlers came here and brought their werewolf stories here to the United States. Maybe there's something there, but I'm having a hard time finding credible old stories, old reports of a canine type creature. It seems to be more recent, the best I can tell, from maybe the 80s. In fact, there was a song here in Michigan. And in fact, the Dog Man is kind of a Michigan thing, really. I think the popularity of Dog Man started here in Michigan with a song by a DJ out of Traverse City, Michigan. His last name was Cook. And he wrote a song called The Legend. It's about a dog man, and it references several. I think the legend, as far as the song goes,
not Nugent with Fred Bear, huh?
The 7th year of every decade. So every 10 years on the 7th year, so 18, 17, 19, or whatever. The 7th year always ended in a 7. The dog man appears according to the song. And this Cook, this DJ out of Traverse City, wrote in the song and gave some reports that have now became folklore and truth. But when in reality it started, I don't know. Anyways, I think that I have a hard time with Dogman. I really do. I think it's two things. Most likely, maybe a misidentification of a Sasquatch type creature, or a black bear walking on hind legs, have the pointed ears, and can look similar if they have an injured paw or something. They will walk around on their hind legs. But I just, scientifically speaking, I have a hard time with a canine that's developed in a way that's able to walk on two legs. I just think that maybe out of fear, people are describing a dog man or a hairy creature that is more likely maybe a primate, in my opinion. But there's other people there's reports out there that certainly claim to be a canine thing that sounds like a werewolf to me, but most of those reports seem to come after that song by that DJ here in Michigan in Traverse City. You know,
Right.
so I think this song may have spurred some of the Dogman legend itself, you know, because from the early settler days, European settlers, they brought their werewolf stories here, but there are really no historical reports throughout the history of the United States and North America with the settlers here of a canine type creature. I mean, it's more of a hairy man description of it, you know, creature. So I'm really not sure. The Bigfoot thing, I guess I'm a believer, but the Dogman I have a little bit tougher time with. You put it into any branch of any.
Yeah, it just seems too unnatural.
Tree of any kind.
Same here.
Anywhere.
Same here.
It just seems problem with Sasquatch.
Yeah, hard enough with Sasquatch, but to me, the Dogman just seems so unnatural. But if they do exist, and my assertion is that is some kind of genetic experiment, and some of the best evidence I think for that is looking at ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. You know, the Nubis that you see, the people there with the dog head, and I mean, I think there might be something to that actually. Here's
genetic experiments going on, you know, and we're playing God kind of with cloning. We've cloned sheep, and sure. I'm sure there's humans at this point that have been cloned by now.
We clone apple trees. We clone whatever we want.
Genetic modification isn't.
You can clone a dog.
Possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's something I want to say about Dogman before we get on this. Okay. What about Bigfoot with genetic mutations, just like humans? Okay, what if maybe people aren't seeing ears, they're just seeing like straggly long hair like I used to have?
Or they went out with their cousin.
And what about imagination? If you know you never really heard of Bigfoot, but be careful of the Dogman. Nobody ever told you about Bigfoot. Well, if you saw Bigfoot, you're not gonna think Bigfoot. You're gonna think Dogman. It's just it's a nature. It's like when I go out in the woods and I'm thinking Bigfoot, and all of a sudden I come on a raccoon, which has happened a lot of times. I came on a raccoon, and all of a sudden I think this could be a Bigfoot, and then I realize it's not. It's the power of suggestion.
Okay, fair enough. But this is the thing: there are enough reports from credible people. If you look at these people, and that's who we always have to look at when you hear these things, that talk about seeing a German Shepherd head, digitigrade legs, you know, running long fingers, claws, you know, like a werewolf, essentially. You know, if you didn't know the word Dogman, people would look at this and say, okay, it's a werewolf. That's the only thing about something like that is the credibility of some of these people that come with these extremely detailed accounts of this creature.
I've told you from day one, Carrie, that I think there is something out there like that. I've told you from day one. But I also think the majority of people that say that they saw a Dogman saw a Bigfoot instead.
I agree. I 100% agree with you. There you go. Here we go. Miss Johnny Mikulski asks, what do your families think about you chasing these creatures through the woods? Do you chase them? Really?
I chase them all the time.
What does the family think? Do they think you guys are nuts, or what? Are they supportive?
My family are the people that chase them with me, to tell you the truth.
Right.
So
fair enough. Ernest?
The rest of them think I'm crazy.
I don't really care what anybody thinks. I think my family half believes me at this point. I think that originally back in the 90s they laughed at me, but more and more I think they somewhat believe me. So I guess I'm not really worried about it. I don't see it as being a waste of any time anyways, you know. I feel comfortable, and I think it's, you know, it's good for my soul to be out in the woods anyways, whether I'm going to find a Sasquatch or not. Being out there in the woods is something I enjoy. You know, backpacking, hiking, fishing, hunting, or chasing for Sasquatch. It's enjoyable to me. I believe it's good for my soul and good for my peace of mind, and
absolutely
good for a better life. So I don't think it's a waste of time at all.
Well, I'll tell you
I
what,
think
we're coming up on an hour and a half, so we're going to take one more question, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. But
Man,
definitely,
I thought we were going 2 hours.
definitely want to.
You
Well,
promised 2 hours, Carrie.
I didn't promise anything. Never
Yeah.
do. Never do. It's just it's what we have to do. Brad and I have a lot of work to do,
buddy.
actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
But
Next
this
question.
one, last one, and this is it says Chad, but I'm going to get both of your opinion on this. This is Wonder Woman, Miss Kathy. Chad, are you armed when you're researching?
Very rarely. Very rarely. It depends on where I go. If I go in areas where I know there's danger and I'm alone, yes. If I'm with a group of people, no. And in most of my areas I go, no, I never go armed because I know the area so well. And they're not like, I don't go deep. I go into like semi-metro areas that I know so well that I'm not going to get lost in. I have good cell service if something happened. I could put a ping out. But if I'm out, if I go somewhere deep up in the UP, I tip it. If I'm not carrying, somebody is. If somebody else is carrying that I'm with, then I don't. But if somebody's not, I do.
Fair enough. Ernest?
Well, for me, I think black bear encounters are rare and attacks are extremely rare. Yeah, I mean, extremely rare for a wolf. I mean, I can't even think of a single wolf attack in my lifetime. Maybe there's been one, but that doesn't happen. And cougars are extremely rare. I really don't worry much about the animals typically, to be armed. I do typically carry. I do have a CPL and I'm licensed to carry, but I typically don't. I don't really worry so much about it, but backpacking and sometimes in the wilderness I will, but less for the animals, actually more for people. I'm more afraid of people than I am the animals most of the time.
True that.
Well, it might be a false sense of security when it comes to anything other than people, but this guy is going to carry his pistol. Brad has a cannon. He's got a 454 monstrosity.
Cool, yeah. So that's
What's that? A Chevelle? You carrying a Chevelle over there, Bradley?
Yeah.
54 4-barrel. Dual exhaust.
Popped up.
442 actually, but yeah, exactly. But so that's kind of a little cannon. But normally I carry like a 357 when I hunt.
I got the
I
45.
carry a 357 a lot also. That's my go-to.
Never jam
in the woods.
Yeah, and that'll take out a person for sure.
I've done ballistics. I've researched it all. 357's a good round, but really 10 millimeter semi-auto would honestly, in my opinion, hey, it's just my opinion. Again,
that's a good thing about this channel.
10 millimeter
45
semi-auto.
Oh, I carry 9 millimeters sometimes, a 357. The best round, I mean, you have the 500, the big 500s if you want to carry something really heavy, but typically.
Desert Eagle.
Yeah, but you get one shot off. You better hit with that one shot. At least with a 10 millimeter, you can get it back. And you shoot that big one, man, it's going up. Boom.
Oh,
that 10 millimeter, you can keep it like that.
Well, I alternate my rounds. I've got the case hardened rounds to Swiss cheese somebody if I need to, and then I've got the defender rounds that will just explode them if I absolutely need it.
We just turned it into guns and ammo. What's going on here, man? I thought we were a Bigfoot show. Now we're guns and ammo.
Well, hey, look, I appreciate you guys coming out. Look, everybody, I'm gonna put a link in the description as soon as this is done. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to Lost Cryptids Conservatory. Let's get them up to 1,000 subs so these guys can go live from the field. Bradley and I are leaving. I'm going to leave here Thursday night, heading to Dallas to pick up Brad, and then we're going to head north to Antlers, Oklahoma. We're going to be filming episode 13 with Mark Copeland. You can find him on YouTube as a live wire. Go check out some of his videos. That's going to be we'll be filming on Friday the 13th. And
you guys have a safe. You guys have a safe trip.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be good. We'll have our COVID masks and everything. And then December the 3rd, we're gonna hopefully be heading down to Florida to film with Donnie Miller for episode 14. And then right after that, we're gonna head on down to West Palm Beach and Mark Zasky and Lonely Zasky and film a crypto reality for our episode 15. So we got 3 in a row planned coming up here before the end of the year, and we appreciate everyone contributing to help us get this done. Absolutely phenomenal turnout on all that, and just can't thank you enough. But thank you to Lost Tribute Conservatory, Ernest, Chad, and hopefully we'll get Bill on. The very next show, late show we do will be with Bill. So we thank you. We thank you all for showing up, and Researchers Report this Wednesday, 7:00 p.m. Central. We'll see you then, because me and Brad are not going to be back for about 2 weeks. So